Okay, we arrive at understanding.
La verità è una ed eterna. Realizza l'unione con essa nel tuo sei immortale, nel profondo del tuo essere. Il seguente commento è basato sugli insegnamenti di Paramahansa Yogananda. Vi sono numerosi passi del Vangelo nei quali vediamo Gesù in aperto conflitto con i farisei, vale a dire con la tradizione umana contrapposta alla vera tradizione mistica. Nel Vangelo secondo Matteo, capitolo 15, abbiamo un buon esempio di
Then some of the scribes and Pharisees from Jerusalem came and asked Jesus, "Why do your disciples break our ancient tradition and eat their food without washing their hands properly first?" Jesus, after scolding them for their hypocrisy in observing lesser rules so carefully while ignoring the much more important ones, said, "Listen and understand this thoroughly. It is not what goes into a man's mouth that makes him common or unclean. It is what comes out of a man's mouth that makes him unclean." It wasn't that Jesus counseled against such wholesome practices and washing one's hands before eating. In an age, however, when lesser rules were given too much importance relative to the truly important observances, cleansing the heart of impure desires. For example, he emphasized the supreme importance of loving God and of communing with Him. The Pharisees, the orthodox religionists of his day, in other words, had brought true religion down to a level of intellectual hair-splitting. They mistakenly considered the way to understanding to lie through a minefield of definitions, which they try to refine to ultimate exactitude. Jesus thought, however, that the intellect alone can never purpose born of the heart's devotion. The intellect wanders endlessly. It cannot settle for long on anything. As the Bhagavad Gita says in the second chapter, the intellects of those who lack fixity or spiritual purpose are inconstant. Their interests endlessly ramified. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. So, happy Sunday, everyone. Those who know me for a long time know that in my first years at Ananda's, I was in the kitchen. I served in the kitchen, in the retreat. And that kitchen wasn't as you can see it now. It was very different. It was very informal. It was not only the kitchen for the guests, but was also the kitchen of the community. So you were in the kitchen cooking for the community and the guests, but at the meantime, community members, they could came in the kitchen, having breakfast, cooking a meal, chatting, opening the fridge. So it was, the environment was very joyful and funny, but challenging for the cooks because you went to the kitchen and you couldn't find all the ingredients, and was challenging to hold your focusing because it was really like a mole. So a lot of community, but little, very little practical. So after many years, we arrived to a point and we decided to share to the community our challenges. We had a meeting and we decided all our requests. So they have stopped taking foods from the fridge and from the pantry and not to enter during the preparation of the meals, so we could manage the cook in a more professional way. So we find this agreement. But there were a period of transition because after many years we changed a lot. And during the transition, one day a long time member, he was in difficulties. His father was here from Germany. It was a very important occasion for him, an important opportunity. And the father, had bread at breakfast and everywhere. And it was a Sunday, the shops were closed. And so he asked, can I have a loaf of bread? Because there's an emergency. And the answer he got was, no, I'm sorry, but we cannot give food to the community in such a way. We need it. If everyone do it, we don't have any bread left for our guest. So, if you look at this kind of thought, also the kitchen was in emergency, so it's fine. But that person, that member of the community was quite upset, was really frustrated because the community didn't open to his request. It was in the heart-centered. So that person, the other person, the cook, good or bad, he was too focused on the practical aspect of the kitchen. So we have the food, we receive the good from God, and so with common sense we can use our intellect and share things the best way. So what is the priority? Our heart, the opportunity, our heart is open or not. So yes, we do have rules, but intellect is not managing, is not ruling you. We have a fundamental statement here at Ananda. People are more important than things. So for us, it's not a law, but is a main principle we do have. People are more important than things. And I question myself many times, but what does it mean? What does it mean, things? What are things? Things are obvious things, stuff, So people, yes, is more important than your car, than your mobile phone, than your money, all material stuff. But it means also many other things. Can be also object. You have a project. You have your plans. Sometimes we are caught in our plans. We are too focused on our plans. But people are more important than your plans. Then you have what you're going to do. So they are more important than your job itself, than your career. Yeah, people are more important. We can go on and on and on. And so I got it. What does it mean? Everything. What does it mean? All. People are more important of all the remaining things. And that's not a principle. It's not easy as a principle. Here at Ananda, I could observe in many different occasions our spiritual guide. They put into practice this principle. And I had to work in order to understand it. Ananda is, everything is topsy-turvy. It seems easy, but it's not. And so in those years I could observe our spiritual guides and trying to be as them. And I would like to share one episode in order to demonstrate the idea. There was a person at Ananda that was fading away. Its relationship with Ananda. He didn't come to the meditation, to the meetings, to the service. He was afar. And he let go also the path. So, nothing bad. But he wasn't appropriate anymore in order to be considered an Ananda member. And so we helped him to find out a different kind of relation. Ananda is your friend, Ananda is your neighbor, but it's no more your community. So, and I had to support a spiritual guide in this process. I very kindly, lovingly, I said to that person, "How are you?" And then immediately, right to the point. So all my thought was focused on my need to correct what is the right thing for him, what is the right thing for the community. But it's subtle. It was subtle. The thing started from me. You see the difference. But I was humble enough and open enough in that moment to ask the spiritual guide, please guide this meeting, because I wanted to learn. So I stay aside and I see how you manage the meeting. And for me it was challenging, but was a very beautiful lesson. She was so different. He was so different. The folk that the spiritual guide put the emphasis on that person. Can you imagine how? So the person came, and the spiritual guide, how are you? Tell me, where were you? Tell me about my life. So they talked about everything, about her health, her diet, They share the book, many different things. They talk about everything, but not the main point. And I was there saying, well, when we reach the point, when we touch the point. And then when the person was fully relaxed, fully support, welcome, then the spiritual guide started subtly. What is your relation with the community? What do you think? How do you see yourself in the community, in this picture? So at the end of the meeting, we have taken no decision. It's just up to you. That's an example, and I have many. Everything is topsy-turvy. For instance, people, they come and they take a role and they do not have the skill. But this test is good for their growth. And so we can understand that the only purpose of Ananda is to become yourself. It's not in building a community or being successful or magnetizing thousands of people, but your individual spiritual growth. So, it might sound illogical, but take their next step. And so here we have a principle. So it's not just Ananda. It's a principle for every one of you in your life. Jesus said it as his second commandment. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. So that's a principle. It's the second law from Christ, the second commandment. What's the most important thing in your life? People. Love your neighbor. Love people. And the first, we will see it in a moment. But the second one is love your neighbor. Love people. The most important commandment in our life, in our relationships. Love, love, love from your heart. Kitani gave a Sunday service a few weeks ago, and she quoted a Mother Teresa from Calcutta. And she said the only purpose in life is love and be loved in return. And how often we forget it. There are things that close our heart, that shrinks our house, self-involved instead of rich outside. Okay? So we focus on our little self. There are many things. First thing, our opinions. What happens when we have a strong opinion and another one has a different opinion, as strong as ours, but we disagree? A little tension, a little friction, then we insist. That's right. I am right. And you in such a way you create tension. Tension, or even more than tension. Anger, maybe. So the thing can turn into separation. I have a dear friend of mine that she has a mantra. When she starts a conflict, especially with the husband, you know that the people we love the most is where we have frictions. So she, when he started a conflict with the husband, She was tensed, and you feel that the heart is shrinking. You are not lovingly in that moment. You are in demonstration that I'm right. And so I had this mantra. Would I prefer to be right rather to be happy? Do I prefer being in right rather to be happy? And I have another friend that said, but this thing is more important than our friendship, that this relation. No, it's not. And so, let go. I've seen a very touching and moving scene. We had a few weeks ago the community retreat for 2 days long community retreat. Very beautiful things happened. There were a walk, a silent walk towards the temple. Everyone was walking with open heart, listening, connecting with nature and silently, quietly. And there were two people that in that moment they had really polarized opinions about the COVID. This one was on a side and the other one on the other side. Because also in this community we are not in perfect agreement. And they were about to start a tension from their heart. But I could see a very beautiful scene. One has a bag, a heavy bag, and the other one silently take the bag, and they walk together hand in hand with a bag, helping each other, as hand in hand, silently, slowly. And I could see on their faces a beautiful smile. And that scene will remain within me for a long time, because I could see the harmony. That's what Ananda is, what is possible beyond the conflict, beyond the opinions. We can make a choice and go beyond, to live from your heart. And another thing that can create a division is our expectation. And we have many. Do you? When we have expectations, we are focused on ourselves. It's subtle. I have the expectation that you will behave that way. So it's how you treat me. When we are in our little self, our heart is shrinked, is closed. When we open, when we think to others, we open our heart. Another episode, I have many, is one of the aspects I love the most, and I'm still learning. There was a person following a path as a ruler is doing, and there were many meetings every single week, many meetings, several meetings. It's a process in order to become a member of the community. very beautiful meetings. For instance, we host the stories of community members, and we clean our home. We put a lot of love in setting the house, preparing a cake, the chai, the everything, the cutleries. We thought to them with love, with energy, dedicating energy. And at the last moment, that person said, I cannot come. Without any explanation. I can't come. That's it. And for me, that reason was not the right one. And I felt a little, my heart shrinking a little. I felt myself frustrated. Why? Why can't he understand? Can't you see? But again, everything was referred to me, to my little self. And then it came to my mind words by Shiryu Texwa that said, I have no expectations on others. And so their actions cannot create any conflict. I do not have any expectation on others. So nothing can happen. You cannot make me accept. Because... And I worked a lot about it. So I could cancel all my expectations. I had to say something to that person. That, yes, it's right also to share your feelings and to say something. But I knew that if I did it before, that person could react to my energy, because we listen to the energy, we are sensitive to the energy, as Jesus said, no? So I said the same word, but from a different energy. I said it from my heart for his growth, for his awareness. And that person welcomed all I said. We hug one each other. It was completely different. So expectations is something that closes yourself. So please go beyond your expectation. And the last one, I thought, but for today just 3: judgment, criticism, and look at the problems of others. But our brain, by default, focus on what you miss, what is wrong. You can have hundreds of talents, but if that person do that thing that irritate you, you focus on that weakness. That is our weakness, and that thing increase that quality. Oh, infame. We hold that person in that little self. Swami Kriyananda didn't at all. He could see, yes, he could see all the problems for sure. But he could see the best in everyone. He focused on that best, on the strength, on the good side, and putting emphasis on those points. People could grow. I am those qualities, and that person grow. So it's a consciousness choice to focus on the strength. But we rather prefer to look differently. Again, now the first commandment. The second, as I said, is love your neighbor, to have an open heart. But how can we do it? Is there any trick, any tip, any tool? But the main thing is to apply, to observe the first commandment. The first, and without the first, the second is incomplete. So the first is love God with all your heart, your mind, and your heart. That's the main commandment. Create space, create time for God. And if you think, but I'm not a devotional people, and Swami said, no, that's not true. We all are devotional. Because it's the skill of the soul to love. It's only that sometimes this part of our nature can be obscured, can be dying, but it's its nature. So don't refuse, reject, to believe that you don't have your light. Assume as you have it. Okay? Assume, act as you have it. Think. And those who knew Swami, they know. You can understand. You have to develop your devotion. You are too much into your intellect. And so he sang for hours and hours and hours. He read books. What can I do in order to develop our devotion? Gather with people who are devotional, because you will attract that magnetism. When we are in contact with that love, because God is love, the experience you might have during your meditation is God as love. You can touch it. And when we touch that love, we can love others. Because our love, yes, we can share it. But our love is so little, so limited, so conditioned. But God's love is unconditional, is limitless, is without any expectation, has no expectations. And so is that love we are talking of. So let love others through God's love. As Saint Therese said, love others and be love and love in return. God loves us through others and we love others through Him. So in order to close, the most important thing is love God and love others. Create space, dedicate time. Don't let go, don't have expectation. It happens now that we wait, and suddenly sometimes a shock in order to evaluate your life in a new way. Don't wait. An accident. Create space. Create quality. Share time. Spare time. And go beyond your limited love. And be perfect to those you love. And also to those we do not love yet. Love others. Love God is the first. Swami said, when we gonna die, God will ask us, He do not ask us what have you done. He will ask just one question: how have you loved? Thank you. So